if I had to give any sort of advice to people with young kids, I would suggest finding a therapist at a young age, setting up some sort of relationship at a very young age, so before any problems start, so that that relationship is already there and you don't have to try to form a bond when you're in the middle of an issue, when it is more difficult to open up. I would try to form that relationship before a problem even came. So maybe once a year, like we go to our, go in for a physical, or twice a year we go to the dentist. I would start my child into a therapist once a year just to create that bond. Let's get that started. And if one didn't work, try another one the next time, but make it an annual appointment. Let's go see a therapist. By the time Jeffrey was older, he had kind of lost faith in seeing a therapist. He had seen a few. Some were better than others, and it just didn't connect for him. So he was not always willing to try again, to try somebody else.
It's hard enough to get to a point where you recognize that you need help. So doing what we can to normalize the experience of coming in and talking with somebody about what's wrong, what's stressing you out, what the problems are, to make that as acceptable an experience as possible is something that we can do for each other. As parents, it's not a sign of weakness that your son or daughter is requesting a therapist. It's not a sign of weakness. In fact, I think it's a sign of strength to recognize that you need some support. Combating a depression is very hard work. It's very hard to do. And the idea that you should just be able to tough it out or go it alone is unrealistic. To get support, to get some education about what is going on is critical, and to not let a sort of preconceived notion about what it means to be in therapy get in the way is really important.
So what I would like to tell the parents is that if they agree with the diagnosis that the psychiatrist came up with for the child, and they agree with the treatment plan for the child, whether they need medications or counseling, and they completely see like how it has been affecting their child's life, at that point the parent is the one who has the power to decide or agree with the treatment plan. Children, being a minor, do not have the medical rights to decide. So if you are convinced that my child needs to be better and needs to be treated, it is not left up to the kids to decide.
Once you've made a connection with a therapist, then it's important to stick it out. Because if you get 10 sessions in, and then that's the other half, is talking to young people, and then you say, well, I don't like what he said, so then I stopped going. At that point, if you've already established a good relationship and you do trust this person, not liking what he said, it might be something you need to hear. So at that point, I encourage you to stay in the therapy. But that initial sense of trust and that initial sense that this is a safe and okay person to talk with is critical.
Starting in therapy can be a daunting experience. It takes a little time to get to know your therapist and begin to feel as though you can open up and trust the process. And oftentimes it seems hard, and people will stop going because of that. And one suggestion I make is if you feel like your therapist isn't hearing you or isn't working with you or isn't getting it. Start the next session by saying that. A good therapist will really appreciate that insight or that statement and be willing to work with you on that. And so I always say, let the therapist know if it's not working, if you don't feel as though you're being heard. The other time I think it helps to speak up is when things are going better. You're thinking you don't need it anymore. You're thinking, things are going better, you don't need to keep going. Bring that up with your therapist too. You might be right that it's time to start thinking about terminating. And on the other hand, I found in my own experience working with people, it helps to continue going and solidify what's better and why, so that eventually those skills or those insights are solidified and can be used ongoing then, even outside of therapy.
Once you've found someone that you feel like is a good and safe person to talk with, and you get going, therapy takes some time. It's not the kind of thing where you, oh, well, we went to counseling 3 times and it's not better. It doesn't work that quickly. But once you've found someone that you feel comfortable with and you're talking with, it's important to stick with it. It's important to be in that counseling relationship, to trust in that relationship, and work together. If later on in the therapy you start to hear some things that are a little bit upsetting, it might be because it's something you need to hear. And that's not what we mean when we say it's based on the relationship and now I'm unhappy, so I'm going to fire the therapist. That's not the time to stop in the therapy. That might be the most critical time in the therapy to stay in there and really figure out what's going on.